Welcome to the 6th episode of Dr. Lukman's Perspective. I am your host, Salihu Lukman. And today we will be concluding our psychology series with part 4, titled Why a Psychology Subject Must Be Introduced and Made Compulsory for All Students in Senior Secondary Schools. In part 1 of this psychology series titled Understanding Child Psychology and Why Corporal Punishments Should Be Abolished in All Schools, I presented a case study of a child who suffers from ADHD, that is, Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. I also concluded that teachers and parents need to pay extra attention to children and understand their personalities and disorders if present, with a view to coming up with effective ways to manage them rather than resorting to beating, which more often than not is counterproductive. And this is without prejudice to a prophetic narration in which the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, peace be upon him, was reported to have said that a child may be beaten from the age of 10 if he refuses to pray. This is a topic for another day. The bottom line here is you cannot give what you don't have. If parents and teachers are not knowledgeable in children's psychology, they cannot implement any meaningful psychological strategy in the management of children, both at home and school. In part 2 of the series titled Understanding Adolescent Psychology and Where Parents Go Wrong, I submitted that students with underlying mental disorders such as borderline personality disorder or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder may drop out of school or change their courses or schools, and that parents should closely study their works for any personality changes that may arise in adolescence or early adulthood, and that delinquents should be given the needed family support to better their lots. Again, this cannot be achieved without a sound knowledge of psychology. In part 3 of the series, titled Understanding Personality Psychology for Better Interpersonal Relationships, I juxtaposed and compared two incompatible partners whose destiny has been joined together in heaven and have become soulmates here on earth in spite of their difficult personality profiles. They both had BPD and ADHD. If this couple does not have psychology knowledge that can grant them insight into their respective mental disorders, they would have been long separated by now due to recurrent and unresolvable marital conflicts. For BPD and ADHD, taking medications alone may not bring the desired transformation. Good insight into one's problems is everything, even in the absence of any medication. You cannot gain appropriate insight without acquiring a sound knowledge of the ABCs of the problem at hand. I label insight as the software controlling your operating system, while medication, if needed, is the hardware. Without the software, the hardware becomes useless. In this case, the psychiatrists are experts on the hardware, while the psychologists are the professionals when it comes to the software. From the foregoing, I hope you are fully convinced, not confused, that introducing a psychology subject in our secondary schools will go a long way to foster better and harmonious interpersonal relationships in schools, workplaces, and homes. There is an urgent need to review our secondary school curriculum by the Ministry of Education and introduce a compulsory subject for all called psychology, where the basics of personality and psychological disorders will be taught. Alternatively, the Ministry of Education may introduce a general course on psychology for all students in all our tertiary institutions. Thank you for listening.